And this guy did make millions of dollars off talking about political commentary. So I'm just saying the nihilism is
Okay, so
oftentimes
Hassan has somewhere
negated with
else to
cash.
be, but he is willing to take a picture with all of us, so I need you to organize quickly
In terms of
to get this.
Alexandria
Wait, wait,
Ocasio
wait.
Cortez, her perspective shifted after a lot of deaths and a lot of
Everyone else,
perspectives
wonderful.
came out, especially after they
So,
threw paint at her
can you
door
take
and
this picture? We're gonna grab
threatened
some
her
food.
with death and stuff like that. A lot of the perspectives of genocide is always followed up with a lot of hatred and anger because a lot of these people are funding something that is essentially going to be taken from Palestine and applied systematically in America at a lesser value. Because if you study the history of the United States of American fascism, the Nazi Party in Germany took a lot of its ghettos and its extermination projects from America. However, America knows how to water it down and slowly roll it out. That slow rollout is one of the main reasons why a lot of people are very upset that no one's jumping out in front of this bus, because to stop the bus would mean you get laid out flat and killed, because there's just no way to actually find a way to solve it other than what Palestinians would see as just outright rebellion. A lot of this reason is, again, what they would do with AI and hegemony is they would segregate you, separate you, make you frustrated you can't eat the food or that you want to eat. You're robbed of aid, you're robbed of healthcare, you're robbed of even a voice because you try to speak out and people say you're just making everything genocide or you're just ignoring the rapes of Israel. And instead of actually acknowledging that an entire society of people are being oppressed and their voices aren't heard, they did a peaceful march and they're shot with snipers. They did multiple presentations. A woman was bulldozed over and slaughtered while she was unarmed. Press journalists are being assassinated, and when you push people down to the measure where you just cannot hear them anymore, you cannot see them as human anymore. You just look at the people shooting, the people dead that are angry, they're starving, angry they're dying to a lack of healthcare, and angry that they're dying, that all their journalists are dying. That essentially you're opening up a shooting range of people you deem as inferior savages or barbarians. Because of this dynamic is going to be applied through America through systemic oppression, which we already see with segregated neighborhoods of black communities. You see the Latino communities, like by San Diego, San Isidro is extremely Latino. You see in East LA is extremely Latino. You see black neighborhoods like Chicago or Detroit as extremely black. You see a lot of people trying to speak out, but their voices are silenced. There's a lot of people slandering them, calling them criminals, calling them terrorists, calling them rapists, pedophiles, calling them terrorists of future generations because their children are now seen as criminals. And you see this all across Twitter. They're hyping up this narrative or this image that all people of that origin of black and Latino are one of the most disgusting, terroristic kind. And of course, they're going to use pedestals, like people in the West Bank would be equated to Uncle Tom in America, or the Tico Taco, or someone that's just pushing the agendas of Latin America and only care for Latin America. But I made it. But I'm the one in the house. I was in worse conditions and I didn't do terrorism. I was in starving conditions and I didn't resort to evil. A lot of this is going to be used as a platform to kill people in America. A lot of people don't take it serious because they're not of the melanated descent. While people get pushed into homelessness because they can't find work, they can't find any ways to feed themselves or shelter themselves, until eventually that person who's starving and hungry and used to have a beautiful life is now pulling out a knife to do a stabbing attack on a random person because at least I killed one of the people that slaughtered me, or at least we're voting in the system and supporting it through taxes, and now it's fair to kill them because in this system we ignore people anyway. So what's the difference if I just kill one of those people that oppressed me to make me feel like nothing? A lot of these systems can be applied in America. You can put something out on TikTok and they'll oppress the views. They'll make sure your voice doesn't get out. They'll make sure the only person that can speak is a guy that says he avoids nihilism because he's a multimillionaire. You get people that say that your best representation is someone who plays Among Us video games to appeal to kids and then funds the Israeli Iron Dome and a lot of their missiles, but then finds out later after multiple discussions what she's doing is genocide or murder. And then she has to change her viewpoint because she's the only one that will, because everyone else is too busy taking the money, taking the resources, taking everything in to give themselves the perspective that at least I made it out the hood, at least I made it out the suburbs, at least I made it out the richer areas, and I'm the special one. Because of that perspective, a lot of people turn against each other. A lot of black people say Latinos hate black people. A lot of Latinos will say black people hate Latinos. A lot of people that are forgotten and saying we're in the background race, no one ever spoke for us, we may as well side with white people, they're going to be ignored. They're going to be put into positions where they have to cater to the idea of whatever white liberals or whatever white Republican conservatives want from them. Because if you don't capitulate, you starve. If you don't capitulate, you run out of healthcare. If you don't capitulate, you go homeless. If you don't capitulate, you're now labeled a rapist, pedophile, terrorist. And because of that, they'll attach it to, now we don't have a Quran, they'll attach it to savage cartels. They'll attach it to the black nature of them naturally being evil, which the last famous words were, when talking about gun crime, are you talking about black people? And then bang. And that's the best we got. Because now that man's solidified in martyrdom and everyone supports him in that. And no black people got saved. No Latinos got saved. No one got saved from anything. The narratives continue. We're still getting pushed into poverty. People are saying they're doing fine because it makes them feel better for the fact they're not taking accountability and they're escaping the essentially slave mines because they made it onto the boat with the master, and the master or the teacher that taught them to escape is a white man and they love and appreciate them. A lot of the time people are not nihilistic, but they've lost hope that white people would actually speak out for them. And a lot of the times, white people will cover their voices, tell them that you're too cruel, or they'll tell you the worst thing you've ever heard, which is, this is the best we've got. And then they'll side with a white guy who did horrible atrocities, but they'll excuse him. They'll give the excuses you wish they gave the hood. You give them the excuses you wish they gave Latinos. And they would never talk about you that way until there's dead bodies piling up, until the resources are so dry they see nothing but homeless people, until they're getting completely exterminated in camps by ICE and they're being killed in custody, they're being shot dead, and any white person who's trying to stand up for them is also being killed off. The dynamic is just one of the saddest things ever because we have no voice for this. No one wants to be the voice because a lot of times these white guys that are on here, no disrespect to Hassan Piker, but the concept is hard to take him serious when he has a t-shirt brand, he's making his own money, he's got subscribers, he's got a Porsche, he's got his own house, he's got a nice luxurious lifestyle. His biggest surge of attention came from Gordon Ramsay's fucking reaction videos instead of actually constructing one of the greatest speeches or one of the greatest organizations of all time that can change us forever. It's the same concept over and over again because when you speak for white people, you have to be ready to just be silenced. A lot of these people are taking money. A lot of these people are doing wealthily fine. They're not angry. They're not pushed to the edge. They've ignored the stories of the people who have suffered. They've ignored the stories of people who have pushed into homelessness. They've ignored the stories so much so that they only have the perspective of an ignorant person because all the intentionally intelligent people who study to stop these genocides, who study to try and appeal to these legislators, are specifically targeted out like those journalists in Israel, specifically targeted out like anyone who's an activist for democracy in Palestine, because all these people are taking out shots. And by targeted in Israel, I mean Palestine. It's just that Gaza's been decimated. The West Bank has flashbangs in their weddings. No one's caring about them. You have like some half-ish support. Anyone who tries to platform themselves to help the genocided people and what the perspectives of happening is some, I'm sorry to say it, but some Jewish guy who is then gonna push the agenda of Jews are the real issue. But I don't support Israel, but they're not a voice that can speak for us. They're just a white person who's trying to sleep with a bunch of liberals and leftists because their perspective is just to say what they want to hear in order to get the feminist label and then say they love them and care for them, which was a great call out by this person because she was calling out the culturally Islamic person, which would be Hassan Piker, which is going to appeal to a lot of people who don't like Islam. But of course, she's not appealing it to the people in America because a lot of black and brown people already been accused of the worst crimes, and the ones who haven't will use that as a token piece because the only token piece you have, besides being a successful person now, is one that's not accused, and below that is just the accused, the throwaways, the ones who's never been accused, but they don't care if they're accused. Their reputation means nothing. They already know they're black or brown, or they're a Latino outcast, or a black outcast. If they love Africa too much, they get told to go back where they come from. If they're too much into black culture, they're told they're degenerate or uncivil. A lot of these people are not getting their voices heard. A lot of these people who speak out and claim they're speaking out for us aren't changing the world because they aren't applying an actual ideology of shifting people's perspective. What they are doing is just waiting till Gaza gets destroyed and flattened, then saying we should do something about it, and then the politicians follow after that. They don't want to change the world until after the slave has been whipped and is crying and screaming for help on the floor and shitting themselves because the slave is something to laugh at. The slave is something to push over to the edge to where they snap. And then when they snap, everyone points their finger and says, "Oh, what a loser. What a psychopath. What a degenerate, mentally disabled person. What a terrorist. What a pedophile. What a rapist. What a monster." And then those same people who call that person horrible will turn around, "Yeah, but they're not all bad." And then this is how they destroyed Palestine. They had a lot of liberals and leftists just tell them that there are certain people that are okay, but the ones specifically are bad. Coincidentally, were leaders. Coincidentally, were martyrs and people that told the news. But look at their past. Look how ugly it was. Look at something a stain in their past, and this must be who they are now. This concept is just genocide, it's extermination. And of course they're going to take the word of white men, of course they're going to take the word of whiteness, of people with different colored eyes or people that are white skinned, because anyone who's brown or any sense of melanated like mine will be exterminated, pushed to homelessness, which I've been exterminated in this concept. I'm still breathing, but they're pushing me to homelessness. I can't find work. People directly told me that they'll make me homeless because of what I'm saying, because of what I advocate for to change the world. And a lot of the people I spoke out with in Congress, and one of the people claimed they were AOC and Bernie, these people just completely ignored the cries for help until they took the credit for themselves, which of course good for them, but they're not listening to the oppressed people. They're listening after the whipping, after the lynch mob. And then they later on it sided with the guy lynching me, attacking me because he said he was Jewish and what I was saying was anti-Semitic, because a lot of the time he would bring up he's Jewish and his race in order to escape accountability, which is why a lot of white people do that here by saying you're anti-white racist or you're jealous of white people. And they'll push that agenda Republican sphere, but once you understand there's another sphere of white people known as white Hispanic, known as a light skin or a albino, or known as just a Jewish person who says, oh, we're white now, those people would then push their agenda forward by killing and exterminating people without even intending to sometimes, but really they are, because they're using their privilege, their whiteness, because they're using their advantage. And of course, in a country like America, there's so much advantages by just being ethnically white, like this man is, Sam Piker. Just by having that white skin texture, he's a millionaire. If he was a pure black, dark black man, no one would watch him. You would have to push such manipulative content. You'd have to go for entertainment. You'd have to go in places where they're already segregated by the algorithm that swears they're not intelligent enough to understand. The Latino, you have to speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, right? So a lot of this time, a lot of these people aren't exactly speaking for us, but again, they do their best. But again, their best is from a white liberal perspective, a white person's perspective. They get the privilege of saying they're communist or Karl Marx, they're Marxist. And if I said that, they threatened to kill me. They threatened to murder me. That I'm a civil rights activist. I organized a lot of these No Kings rallies without people knowing because I made phone calls for them. But a lot of these people just do not care because, again, when you're melanated, you're expected to complain. You're expected to always complain about your conditions, and it gets annoying, it gets tiring. A lot of the time, an inspirational speech is like an entertainment dance for a lot of these people because they want something to be entertained by. A lot of them do not care about you personally. They don't care about your characteristics because their characteristics was an MLK Jr. quote and is not actually how they see and perceive human beings, because they have to apply that continuously and judge their own character. They'll have to look in the mirror and ask, who are they looking at? Is that someone they're proud of? Is that someone they want to be like? Because a lot of time when I know I'm structuring a future world, I'm not just saying this is wrong, this is bad. I'm trying to find solutions for it. I'm trying to find connections that people can connect to and really get together to fight for something better. A lot of the discussion got lost with the AI. They should have spoken about AI more because AI fixes the algorithms to keep people quiet. It fixes a voting basis. It fixes perspectives. It fixes the idea of why ICE was even accepted to begin with. It accepted the concept of saying that just because you're a different skin color and having a little bit of an accent, someone can say, I think I hear an accent, and they can use that to deport you. They can make the Latino insecure of the Latino that speaks only English because they'll say that's I'm more American than you and they don't love you and care for you like I do. I speak Spanish. So that person who speaks Spanish is full of shit because they got a nice paying job, they got a nice future, they're doing great for each other, and they use the conservative mindset of Darwinism, the strongest will survive, in order to enact what they believe is a true successful society. And a lot of the time, people are just so comfortable, and because they love their comfort, their comfortability, they're able to buy their food, they're able to stay in a house or a shelter. A lot of these people are slowly being pushed to kill lines, which China stated. When you're starving for food, you stand outside for food, which is the same critique they used to give the communists. The communists used to be told that they have bread lines. Here in America, we got kill lines because we don't have an intent to feed you. We have an intent to make you homeless and make you starve to death slowly, so that when the food is not enough, the healthcare isn't there, and you catch a disease outside and you'll be limping around, you'll be told you're a drug dealer or you're a druggie, you're a pedophile, you have to be some rapist that went homeless because you sexually assaulted people, and that's the best way to kill people first. They started with Islam calling them pedophiles due to Muhammad. They started with the Latinos by calling them cartel sex traffickers with children and women, and they started to say they were serial killers, decapitating people like ISIS, and they're terrorists who need to be drone struck. They called the countries they come from incompetent and third world and lesser and inferior. They started really slowly and they started to ramp it up. Black people were always seen as the slaves and the people of Africa that come from mud huts, that come from nothing but eating animals or insects because they're lesser humans. They're eating pig guts. They're eating fried chicken because those are the scraps of what the master used to give the slave. They have documented stories of just breeding black people like they were animals, like their reproduction capabilities of cattle. And then in America, Native Americans were slaughtered on sight with laws saying you can shoot a Native American on sight. And that was the original Bear Arms movement because they want to shoot the Native American. And the property they protected was not the land per se, because they did that with Native Americans. It was also a reference to black people as property, which is why they were seen as human but not human, because they're still human enough to kill over and defend, but they were not human enough fully to be given the same civil rights that we got in the 60s, which is not that far long ago. Whereas the modern era, or the modern being of what we are, is again going to be filtered through white supremacy apartheid, which a lot of white liberals still benefit from. So when you try to talk to these people, a lot of these people are tokenized. A lot of the representation in Congress, or that became president, were lying to us in order to get those positions. Those positions were easily acquired by just lying to the voter base and telling them what they want to hear, customer service, smiling in their faces. And then they would leave us for the slaughter, and then they will abandon us and then leave us to homelessness, saying, don't worry, we got the social safety net. You have EBT, you have Section 8, you have welfare, and you have financial aid. And all that told people was, you're going to die. You're going to die a slow death. None of this is enough. And then when you say that, the Republicans say, so we should just take it away, like an abusive parent that says, we'll take it all away because you're ungrateful. The concept of this ideology in America is to slowly kill black and Latinos, because black people are no longer African, they're now American territory, and the Latinos renamed from the Native American to the Latino race. And no one can stop this movement because, again, our representation is too scared. They get too much money from white liberals who already historically got their money from taking land, establishing manufacturing production for their race, for their people, and they always carry that bias in the back of their heads that we're doing this for you, but not really, because you're lucky to even have food. You're lucky to even have a shelter over your head. Where else you're going to get a better place than here in America, getting some health care, some EBT, some Section 8, some schooling, because some of you did make it out. And that is the Darwinistic principle that if you're beautiful enough, you're sexually appealing to men, they'll save you from poverty, like the cashier memes you see online, or the big booty Latinas, or a lot of the time when you report a crime, to try and report a rape or a pedophilia attack, the white man who's getting accused can turn it on you and say, you're the real bad guy for reporting it. You're the real bad guy for understanding it, even though that's the man who's always been attacking people, but he surrounds himself with Asians through passport broing, or tokens of black people who always been racially racist towards other people because they were taught to hate themselves. They were taught that everyone else was out to get them, so may as well get some of your own and get some victimization. And they'll use that tokenization and they'll use it like a platform for themselves in order to make themselves seem stronger and more independent of this ideology of whiteness. However, they are whitewashed. So therefore, if you are beautiful, you're a token, you're just another plantation a slave that's being awaited for purchase. If you're someone who complains about it, it's okay, then we won't purchase you, we'll leave you to starvation. And so they'll abandon you, they'll leave you for hunger, for being a complainer. And then if play into the role, you're just beautiful, you sleep with the people you need to sleep with, or you're just smiling and talking cordially how they want you to talk, because at the end of the day, they'll tell you to speak like you're supposed to, boy. Speak the language you're supposed to, boy, because they don't see you as a man. So they'll put you on EBT. So you have chicken feed, you have chicken scraps, you have barely anything you can eat. Because even right now in my situation, I'm on EBT and I still can't afford fried chicken. I still can't afford really good food because I think fried chicken's good food now. There's not enough money in EBT. They're even critiquing that it's used for junk food, and it's still not enough to even eat junk food because I'm still starving when I buy the junk food to begin with. The concepts of Section 8 isn't approved for all people. I applied to it. They said I don't have a job, so I can't apply for Section 8. I'm going to go homeless. A lot of the Section 8 system is bullshit. A lot of the financial aid is bullshit because you have to be lucky enough to have a job, pay your rent, feed yourself, and have time to go to school, which leaves you no time at all to learn about the real world, no time to understand politics, which politics are affecting you. And now you're being told, where else are you going to get a better place than this? You better know your place, boy, because they will threaten you with homelessness. They'll threaten you with starvation. They'll threaten you with debt because now you're spending everything you can to just pay your rent to stay alive. They will treat you like a subhuman, and they'll do this with algorithms that are privately owned, AI that is privately owned that billionaires can use to single out targets to kill them. And if you're fortunate enough to be a rich person, like some people like Hassan, who is rich enough to escape this, or AOC, or Bernie Sanders, who is actually able to survive these systems, a lot of them aren't going to be advocating for a change because when they do, it's so minimal and it's so tiny that nothing ever happens. And anyone who's complaining about it, they're already slandered and defamed to the point where any civil rights leader is silenced, any civil rights activist is silenced. And they're not given any piece of the cake. They're not given any of the money. They're watching you raise millions of dollars that go nowhere, that fund your people, that fund your nepotist circles. And none of it comes to people like me who helped organize it, who help people get together, who help people understand the perspectives of reality, because they're just saying, I agree with him, but none of them are going out there to speak in their hunger and their hatred for this system. A lot of the time, these AIs are designed specifically to kick out certain people in society. They're killing people slowly, and of course, you can say Terminator, and suddenly my viewpoints are gone. Their political science was just to make it seem ridiculous, and so they'll speak like it's ridiculous, and therefore your voice does not matter anymore. They will silence you, they will kill you, they will do anything they can to minimize your influence, and they will use this continuously with perfected algorithms, with perfected calculated strikes with money, resource, in order to separate and divide any group that's formed, so it's only white. So that it's only white people's opinion. And now you have to cater in accordance to your voter base, which is mainly white, which is mainly paying with a lot of money. And now the black and brown have to pick like it's the best we got, like we're picking the chicken scraps again, because none of these people speak for us. None a single one of these people in Congress speak for us. Obama didn't speak for us. He funded ICE to deport Latinos. He built the cages to put the Latinos in we're complaining about. He told BLM to essentially shut up that noise because we still have BLM now. He didn't fix the programs with policing. A lot of times that we are going with the best we got, but realistically, if we'd resorted to what Palestine did, we see a very end result. What happens when we have an armed resistance, or a riot, is they will just start sniping people dead and shooting them dead. And we saw that with Koreatown, with the Asian people killing black people on sight. Now that's one of the proudest moments of white people saying, good job, boy, shoot them, boy. And now we have nothing but Asian people who hate black people and Latinos because they think they're superior for picking the conservative lifestyle that allowed them to succeed in a society that fetishizes them, tokenizes them, and uses them like they're supercomputers when they're just regular people, and they want to sleep with their women because that's the object they bring, that's the desire they have, that's a resource they see them good as, and they don't see them as human men worthy of respect and dignity. A lot of these people are treated like animals. They're treated like people only good for the women, only good for the concepts of getting cash or currency, because if you succeed, you're one of the good ones. And if you complain about what's happening, they'll tell you you should know your place. Where else are you going to get this, boy? Remember where you came from? Remember where you are? Because again, their associated identity is to push you down. They don't see you as a human being, and when you try to cry out, you're crying out to people with Porsches, you're crying out to people with the Tesla, you're crying out to people with technology that they funded through the Obama administration, that $500 million for Tesla. So now that we have the next generation of rich people saying, at least you got a nice car, at least you got an electric car, they're gonna compare you to the people in Africa. Burkina Faso has their own electrical vehicle. So Africa's actually catching up to some of these segregated neighborhoods. A lot of these rich billionaires have money, but the problem I'm scared of, if they tax them, they're gonna give it to the middle class. They're not giving it to the poor. They're not giving it to the lowly. They're not giving it to the outcast. They're not giving it to the downtrodden. They're giving it to the white man. The people they use as an excuse to kill and execute black people is the Latino. That right now there is no one lower than the Latino. The Latino is the reason why ICE is out here. They're the reason Gestapo's out here. And black people, of course, for generations been saying that's police for them. But same with us. We had to hide from police because they would call ICE. They would call immigration. So now we have two different forces of enforcement. We have ICE for the Latinos that also hurt the black people, because they'll say you're Haitian, they'll say you're African, they'll say you're Jamaican, you're not from here, boy. And then you have a bunch of people that are scared of police that is like, there's a black man, get him. He's a criminal, usual suspect. There's a Latino, usual suspect, get him. And now we have two police forces designed specifically to attack us. And now they even included where pedophiles and rapists through sex trafficking thing through the Latino cartels that black people historically are being accused of because they have twerking kids on stage, or they have teaching degeneracy or sexual degeneracy to children. And they're all pedophiles and monsters. Or they're doing mass shootings through gang violence. And they're the real mass shooters. They're setting us up for extermination. And it makes us frustrated because when we see a place like Palestine fighting back, we see if we actually did an armed resistance, it's drone strike after drone strike after drone strike, and not a single man would question exterminating an entire race of black or brown men. The lowly Latino is seen as executable because it's historically someone that they would execute as a Native American invader. The black people are seen as lucky to be here because they're reproducing faster than they kill each other in gang violence to disrespect their culture, to disrespect their men and women. A lot of them are left without education, so they just get mad when they get told this because the cognitive dissonance of accepting the fact you're still a slave in 2026 is frustrating because the only representation you have is the black man that funded the white man he says is evil and funded a lot of the situations that even Israel's using to kill people. Like AOC approved the bill and she's the only Latina representation we have. Our voices are robbed, our actions are taken from us, and now we have to depend on people with more money than us, smiling with perfect, beautiful teeth, a beautiful face like Obama or AOC, and Bernie Sanders old as fuck. Like this man survived the 60s and civil rights. Like that dude's clinging on. He's seen it firsthand. And he has the curse of being seen as Jewish because Israel's getting bombed to shit. And he knows a lot of Jewish people are going to say, "You're one of us, ain't you? You one of us, ain't you? So you should hate these people, same as us, ain't you?" And they'll push that pressure on him. So whenever we come near him and go, "Thanks, Bernie Sanders," he's just another guy who's sticking to his district and can't change much other than speaking out. And of course, they made fun of him for being a socialist. But another word for socialist is an N-word lover, is a B-word lover, which is another word for the man who eats beans with a hard R at the end. And a lot of people are going to associate with turning against one another because the unity is now on the side of the white people because it's always permission from the white people, it's always permission from the billionaires, it's always the perception that we have to submit to them in order to get our permission as a human being in this country because we're treated as second class citizens, we're treated as a lesser than a human, we're treated as property of the United States of America, to where the only thing we are permitted to do is get out of this country and come back to where you come from if you want to complain so bad, and then they'll demoralize you, tell you your whole race is trash because the place you come from is not doing any better than America because America focused on slaughtering and colonization and the rape dens that they have. And in America, where there's white men, over 300,000 people sleep with children because they can have child marriages. And if you mention that, they'll say, "You're the bad guy." If you try to mention how AI is abused, they'll say, "You're the deceiver. You're the one making fake news. You're the one making disgusting things with AI for reporting it." And then put it in the hands of the Uncle Tom, put it in the hands of the white man, and then they're applying it the right way in their eyes. They'll scream accreditation like that ain't screaming classism. I just hope someone's out there to speak for us because a lot of the time when it's time to speak out, a lot of us are going to be silenced before it's too late. I hope they're not. I really hope we're not too late. This was an interesting interview. This was an interesting discussion. I really hoped a lot of his discussions would go more in depth. I feel like he's very naive when it comes to black and brown people in America. It was such easy kills in terms of discussion or debate or questioning in terms of why you don't care about rape. But if you were accused of rape or pedophilia as a Muslim for studying Quran or just being religiously associated, you would understand what it means to be a black or brown person, which of course he doesn't have that disprivilege because it's a very unprivileged perspective to have black or brown skin in this country. It's one of the worst things to have. They will treat you like a lesser human. They will ignore you. They'll push you to homelessness. You can organize one of the biggest protests in American history, and they would hand it to a white man. They will hand it to white people. Those crowds are pure white. They did not have representation. None of us have representation. None of us are being heard in America. We're being slowly killed through starvation, through homelessness, or being slaughtered through the lack of healthcare, to which now we're just roaming the streets like zombies till our death. And we're gonna have to depend on people who funded a pact that slaughtered Palestinians, and they have their own money, they have their own resource, they have their own tanks, their own jets. No black man has a jet to drone strike. No black man has a military at their backing. They don't have destroyer ships. No Latino has it either. We're getting called inferior species in Mexico. 80% the economy in Mexico is America's, owned by neoliberalism. The same liberals that you vote for here. The same Democrats you vote for here voted for the Jakarta method to slaughter people in Latin America for being communist. They tortured my grandfather. They raped him. They threatened me with rape, and situations happening here in America I'm not proud of because I should have fought harder. But a lot of things happen to me too. A lot of us are being humiliated. A lot of us are being pushed to the edge to where we don't want to hurt people. We don't want to stab someone to death. I'll disarm a man before I ever decide to kill him. I'll humiliate myself before I ever hurt a woman. But you know what they'll do? They'll say you hurt a woman. They'll say you did a knife fight and try to kill a man. And they'll shoot you dead. They'll say you deserve slander and defamation. They'll say you deserve to be treated like a lesser. Because the victimization of white skin and those who side with them by being whitewashed or just by being one of their slave pets is more important to them because the tribal mindset of these white people in America do not want to see past their blatant discrimination toward the people of lesser races. Because we still never escaped those days of I had a dream because he told everybody that it was a dream in his head. It was not something in reality. Even after he signed that bill, he never said freedom, freedom, freedom because again, we are not free people. We are the enslaved race of America. We are the people that are being silenced. Pretty soon, I don't know if my voice will ever be heard out there ever again. I don't know if people will ever know me. I don't know if I'll starve to death and people will just ignore my existence ever happened. I'm speaking like a resistance fighter in the Terminator movies, hoping that you hear me before the robots kill me or the people push me to homelessness and say it's natural while they go and have parties, while they go out and buy designer clothes. And I have to be grateful to these people who would watch me die. And they'll pull me up on their stream. They'll pull me up in like a filibuster and say, look at this terrible situation. But they don't care. They don't care about us. They'll watch us all die. It's more than nihilism for these privileged people. For privileged people, it's losing hope because you get to watch it like a TV channel. For a lot of the people at the bottom, this is not a joke. This is not a TV show. We are dying. They're being killed. Our fathers, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters are being slaughtered. And all they can tell us is we're doing our best. This is the best we got. Because they love that liberal money. They love that bloodshed because of killing people overseas is something they can hype up white people about because now our lives are a TV show to them. Now it's just interesting to see smoke clouds because watching a man starve to death is not as climactic as seeing someone shoot it out and then seeing that person gunned down and getting that dopamine inside of a lot of white people's heart going, we killed the bad guy because they're so Hollywood ingrained through propaganda. They swear that the bad guy was the one with the gun shooting back. American Sniper is a great example where they said I wiped out a whole generation of bloodlines, but really what they didn't show was the psychopathic serial killing mass shooter gunning down a whole generation of bloodlines because we have more sympathy for the people who go and slaughter people overseas than we do for the people who are protecting us back home because the people protecting us back home are the ones speaking out, not the ones with the guns because the people with the guns will make sure we starve to death and put a gun to our head and threaten us that if you steal any food, I'm gonna kill you, or if you reach while you're stealing food, I'm gonna kill you. If you go and you try to sit in a house that's not yours, you're disgusting and you're invading and you're stealing land. But if you do that in Israel and steal land from Palestinians, you're doing something justified and culturally appropriate. You have multi-billionaires with more money than they'll ever have just laugh and look down on us from their armored vehicles or the jets flying overhead while they laugh at the poor. There'll be real estate agents more rich than we will ever be. There'll be people with more resource than we will ever have, and they'll look down on us that saying, telling us that we need to work harder when there's no job. I want to work a job. Where's the job? No one's giving me a job. I'm starving to death. No one's giving me a job. There's gonna come a time where knife attacks are gonna come normal in America, and they probably already are to an extent, and the mass shootings are gonna go up, and the same people who are trying to protect us that say this best we got will just take our gun away from us. They'll take away our ability to hold a knife because making sure we die like a good bitch boy is the only thing that matters to them. They'll put the hand over our mouth. They'll put their hands in our fucking mouths and they'll fuck each other till they get completion and say sexual freedom is all we fight for. Meanwhile, we're getting fucked. We're getting killed off. Not a single one of them give a fuck about us. They'll live fantasy after fantasy and look down at us like we're animals. And we'll fight like animals toward the end because just like Palestine, we will always resist the people that are oppressing us. And that will never be a person that's on the streets trying to work and survive. It's always going to be the oppressor that has their job in the Senate or the House. the presidency included, and all the military and police that are cowards because they got the check, they got the warm food, they got the fucking system, they got to fuck a wife or a husband. Meanwhile, the rest of us are fucking intense and fucking anywhere we can, or just being starved of even the concept of social bonding altogether. Because now we're the bums that they make fun of, calling us broke boys, calling us inferior. Which, if you look at the wealth gaps in America, are all black and brown men, Latino and African American. Not a single damn one of these liberals give a fuck about us. He'll talk about Palestine and Israel because that gets you clicks and views. But if you talk about the black and Latino people here in America, he'll see that as something a lot of liberals are tired of hearing. Tired of it. Because every single time we try to do something to fight for our rights is a bunch of white people instead of Latino or black. Because we know as soon as we go out there, we're going to jail. They're all siding with police because they're not scared of each other. They're scared of black people. They're scared of Latinos. They're scared of people so poor, so hungry, so tired, so desperate that we will resort to stealing from these rich people whose clothes will be worth more money than what we can fucking buy from them. We can't afford their stores they have, their little boutique shops. We can't afford their jewelry stores. We can't afford their t-shirt drops that they have. We can't even afford the subscriptions for these websites that they stream on. And I'm supposed to be what, be grateful to them? I'm gonna starve to death and go homeless while these people live in $1 million houses and have Porsches in their garages and Teslas, and they work at one of the most beautiful places built by slavery and pushed forward with the stealing of the land of the Native Americans, who we now call Latino, to avoid accountability from. And we have a giant oil painting of Pocahontas to remind us what happens when a white man fucks your woman and takes your land and makes you a broke slave on the land of which you were supposed to be called a man on. What respect do we have for ourselves in a country where you're going to mimic the same conquistador behavior and have the name of Cortez in it, and have the perspective of it, another conqueror who looks down on us, or have the perspective of Obama when he just funds the same Elon Musk that fucks us over, that takes American funding, $500 million. That ain't shit. That's a lot to me. That's a lot to me. These people could cure homelessness, but they're more afraid of the real estate market crashing and making a bunch of rich people less money. They can cure hunger, but in order to do so, they would have to admit they always could have. They can fix the healthcare system, but they would have to admit what they had to do was just tell them to know their place or else. They can fix the education system, but they would have to admit their plan and goal was never to educate you to be smart enough to know who's stealing your money. They wanted you to stay ignorant so that anyone who goes up there is already a privileged piece of shit that got their degree through the constant privileges of their life, hanging out with white people, having interrace relations because they'd rather be with the white man rather than the brown or black at the bottom because they see us as dirty or lowly or slaves. It's a perspective of mathematical genius that we have that they ignore. That mathematically speaking, we're never going to escape without any bloodshed. That's something to think about. Thank you for watching. This was my recap. I think he did a very mediocre job. I'm not mad at him, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad at AOC, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad at Bernie, I'm disappointed we as a people did not elect him sooner. I hope one day my voice can be heard. Because if it's not, it's going to be the last voice we probably hear fighting for this. Because the next voice will be the one you have to cover your ears in. Because you won't be able to hear them with artillery fire or the drone strikes or them telling you to load this shit up. Because we're letting this shit fucking spray. And we're praying to no God other than the science of calculating that the trajectory of fighting back at least taught that CEO to watch his fucking mouth before he died. Because when you deny people healthcare, you get put in your fucking place. Free Luigi. Fuck you, Charlie Kirk.